So this month, I want to talk about relationships. When I think of February, of course, we have Valentine's Day in February, and people think about love and romance, and that's wonderful and that's beautiful. And what I want to focus on for this month is the importance of deep, rich, holy relationships. Holy relationships. And so, when I think about it, I think about just how important the quality of our relationships are to our overall well-being, our happiness in life, our physical well-being in life, our joy in life. When I was in ministerial school, I worked in Silent Unity, which is Unity's 24-hour prayer ministry, and we would receive calls for prayer support from all over the world, 24 hours a day. And of all the requests for prayer, the number one request, at least at that time, when I was serving in Silent Unity, was request for prayer around relationships. Either wanting to bring love into one's life, or wanting to repair a broken relationship, or wanting to feel a sense of wholeness inside oneself, self-love, self-care. It was the most common request for prayer. And I rather suspect that if it's not the number one, it's pretty close to number one still. And so today I want to begin with an invitation that we look at our relationships through a spiritual lens, that our relationships really provide us the ultimate, I think, spiritual laboratory for practicing these principles and ideas. If we can practice them in our relationships, I think we can practice them in any other area of life. So we're going to be looking at our relationships through a spiritual lens and recognizing a fundamental truth. And that fundamental truth being that the quality of our outer connections is absolutely connected to and is a mirror of our inner connection. And so we're going to start this morning by looking at ourselves. We're going to start this morning by looking at the most important relationship we will ever have, and that is a relationship that we have with ourselves and with ourselves as a spiritual being. I remember when I first learned the practice of metta blessing or metta meditation, and we do a form of that at the end of our service when we do our metta blessing. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free of pain and suffering, and so forth. When the full practice of a metta meditation or a metta blessing, though, begins first with affirming that for oneself. So even before affirming it for the other, even before affirming or holding the intention, may you be happy, may you be healthy, it is to first hold that for oneself. And I remember when I was first taught that, I was a little uncomfortable with it because it felt to me in a way like being selfish, that first I should be focusing on the other. And then as I studied a bit more and started to understand a bit better, I came to appreciate that the quality of my outer relationships is going to be very impacted by how I hold myself, how I feel about myself. And hence the starting point in the metta blessing of may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free of pain and suffering is not meant to discount the other or lessen the other in any way, but to make sure that as we prepare ourselves to be in holy relationship with another, that we are feeling more whole and complete in ourselves. Does that make sense? Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, touched upon this indirectly when he said it is the law of spirit that we must be that which we would draw to us. It is the law of spirit that we must be that which we would draw to us. If we would draw to us love, we must be love. If we would draw to us love, we must be love. be loving, and be kind. And so in order for us to really create holy relationships in our lives, we have to make sure that we're coming from a holy place inside of ourselves. In other words, to be a friend to ourselves. Many of us are our own worst enemies. Many of us talk to ourselves the way we would never talk to a friend. Am I right about that? Yeah. Many of us do that. We talk to ourselves the way we would never talk to a friend. And so one of the starting points for us has to do with understanding our relationship to God. And understanding first that if we want to improve our relationships, there are outer things we can do and things that we may need to learn or get better at. Our human tendency, I think, is first to go to the doing before the being. And so if we're thinking about creating richer, deeper, holier, more meaningful relationships, we often think, okay, what do I need to learn to do better? And so we might take a class, or we might start reading a book. We might start working on our communication skills. We might start practicing our love language, learning what our love language is, and using that with our partner, what our partner's love language is. Or we start setting boundaries. And those are helpful skills. But I think that comes after the being. That comes after understanding that we are God in expression, that we are born right the first time, we are born in original blessing, not original sin. One of our core beliefs, in fact, our first unity principle, is a principle that there is one presence and one power in the universe. That presence and power is God the good, omnipotent. And you can substitute the word God if you don't like the word God. Put something else in there. But that there is a presence and a power in the universe that is equally present everywhere, in everyone, in us, between us, in every situation, in every opportunity, in every calamity. One presence, one power. And when we understand that we live and move and have our being in that one presence and that one power, we begin to feel a sense of faith and confidence spiritually that empowers us to show up in our relationships in wholeness and in completeness. We sometimes still fall prey, though, to looking and saying, okay, when things are happening in the world that are terrible, or tragedies that are happening, or things are happening in our life that we don't like, we say, where's God? How could God let that happen? Right? That is a very ignorant understanding of God. God is not a being out in the universe causing things to happen or not causing things to happen. God is a force and an energy and presence that moves through us to the extent that we are open to allow it to move through us. We are the hands, the eyes, the arms, the feet, the heart of God. And some of us do a really good job of that. And some of us, who was it that I quoted a few weeks ago? It's like God in drag, God in disguise, right? In 12 Steps, I think they talk about it a little bit differently. They say things like, if you feel that distant from God, if you feel a disconnect from God, God did not move, you did. God did not move, you did. When we look at things happening in the world and we're discouraged or concerned and we blame it on God, we are having a very ignorant understanding of spiritual principle and spiritual practice. God can only do in the world what God does through each and every one of us. It's not an absence of God anywhere. It's an absence of the awareness of the presence. Does that make sense? It's a big, big, big difference. The Hindu teacher Ramakrishna said, you don't see the stars in the daytime, but that doesn't mean that the stars don't exist. They're still there. They're still there. So the practice, part of the practice then, is acknowledging the source, recognizing who and what we are, that we are an expression of that power, an expression of that divinity, and that we are always supported and blessed. We are always supported and blessed. When we can acknowledge that and can really feel that and own that, then we stop acting like spiritual orphans. And we start acting like a divine partner. We start acting like a divine partner. And that influences then every relationship we will ever have. When we get who and what we are, it's going to fundamentally change how we talk to one another, how we help one another, how we strive to understand one another. So getting right with that is a fundamental starting point. When we think of friendship, when we think of what it means to be a good friend shows up, right? A good friend shows up. A good friend tells the truth. A good friend is demonstrating spiritual integrity. We demonstrate spiritual integrity when our inside matches our outside. That's spiritual integrity. That's spiritual integrity. When we stop pretending to be something we're not. One of the biggest areas of healing for most people is healing to become their authentic selves. To not pretend to be somebody so that other people will like you or approve of you or love you. That's a really significant area of personal growth. And the kind of personal growth that absolutely influences the quality of all of our relationships. We can't have wholly meaningful, real relationships, romantic relationships or friendships or business relationships, if they are built on a spiritual lie. If they are built on us pretending to be somebody that we're not. Does that make sense? And yet, how challenging it can be, and how much courage it can take to show up in your relationships as who you truly are. The kind of person you are, the strengths that you have, the quirks that you have, but to show up authentically. Now, that does not give us license to be a jerk. It does not give us an excuse for not growing. It does not give us an excuse for being unkind or mean or any of those things. But what it does mean is that we get comfortable inside of our own skin. That we get comfortable being who we are as we continue to grow. So that the person that is my friend genuinely because they really know who I am, not who I am pretending to be. Are you with me? Are you with me? To create meaningful relationships requires that of us. Requires that of us. To stop pretending to be someone or something we're not. Take a deep breath in. Just let that go. I bet you have, at least I hope you have, at least one person in your life where you can really be who you truly, completely are. And that one person is a person with whom you feel safe, right? You feel safe to cry, to share your vulnerabilities, to share where you might feel shame or guilt or remorse, to just be who you are, and they can love you and accept you and see you exactly as you are, and also hold all that you are capable of being and becoming. That's a tremendous gift. I think one of the reasons that Jesus was the teacher that I believe he must have been for us to still know about him and talk about him today was because he met people where they were, with their quirks, with their problems, with the fact that some parts of society ignored them and turned their backs on them or pushed them away. He met them where they were, but didn't hold them to where they were. In other words, gave them room to grow. Healthy relationships give us room to grow, allow us to be who we are, and give us room to grow. We trust people whose outside matches their inside. The practice for us is to stop pretending, to get comfortable in our own skin. And maybe it takes a few years and a few bruises and a few failed relationships until we finally wake up to that and go, the other way didn't work so well. I'm going to try this way. Does that make sense? I hope so. And then one of the other pieces that relates very much to what I've just been talking about is this idea, I'm going to use the phrase divine signature. Divine signature. That each of us is unique. And sometimes the uniqueness of one another we delight in, and sometimes we don't. But each of us is unique. You know, as when we were kids, we probably learned that snowflakes, that there are no two snowflakes that are identical. And I mean, to this day, that blows my mind. When was the last time you were in snow? Maybe not for a while, but if you've ever been in snow, I'm heading out to Kansas City and there's snow flurries, I'm told. If you've ever been in a lot of snow and you look at it, and, you know, especially the snow that's soft and fluffy, that is not the Sierra cement that's filled with so much water, but the kind of like the Colorado snow. And you blow that snow and you see all of these flakes just moving in the air, and you stop and you think, science says that no two snowflakes are exactly alike. That's phenomenal. The infinite uniqueness. The same is true of each and every one of us. There has never been a you before. There will never be another you exactly like you. Again, even with reincarnation, if you believe that as I do, you will come back somewhat different. Each of us is unique, a divine signature. And that helps us, I think, be willing to embrace and be more authentic. When we recognize that uniqueness, when we celebrate that uniqueness. I'll go into this in weeks to come, but one of the mistakes we make in relationships is we try too often to have other people be just like us. If we were ever successful in doing that, it would be a really boring world. It would be a really boring world. The uniqueness is a gift. Your uniqueness, your quirkiness, your ways of being is unique. It's a gift. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, and don't let anybody ever take that away from you. Celebrate that. When we criticize ourselves, when we are harsh on ourselves, when we think we should somehow been born differently, it's as if we are insulting the Creator. It's as if we are saying, to the Creator, to God, to Spirit, you made a mistake. And I don't think he, she, it, whatever you want to call it, made a mistake. Can you imagine a world in which every child is brought up in this understanding? Stop for just a moment. Just let your mind hold that for a moment. How would that create a very different world? Would you agree it would create a very different world? Yeah, I think it really would. We would stop acting in the inhumane ways that we still, as a species, act. We would treat each other with love and kindness. We would not be afraid of the other. And if we felt a little bit of fear bubbling up because the other looked or seemed different than us or held different beliefs or different styles or different ways of presenting themselves, instead of feeling afraid, we would more spiritually mature and move into simply being curious. Simply being curious. The next time we're ready to judge another, or even ready to judge ourselves, what if we chose to be curious and to ask sincerely of ourselves, I wonder what happened in that person's life for them to be as they are. I wonder what's going on in my own life for me to be as I am. Curiosity is a much gentler way of approaching our growth. And as we treat ourselves with more kindness, as we remember who and what we are, as we feel more comfortable being our authentic selves, as we stop being afraid of our uniqueness and instead embrace it, not only do we become happier, and I think physically probably healthier as well, but we begin to model that for others. And in the modeling of that for others, it's almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Indirect permission giving to the other to step into their own light, just as Nicole had sung to us. You are the light. You are light. You're not the things that happened to you. You're not the dreams that didn't come about. You're not the mistakes. You're not the stuff your family may have told you or society may have told you. You are the light. And so this month, as we continue to explore relationships, and we'll get into some of the skills and some things like that, I felt it was so important that we have a foundation, and that foundation really focuses first on us understanding ourselves and bringing our wholeness into the work that we want to do around relationships. So this week you may have opportunities to practice some of this, to practice being kinder to yourself, to practice watching your own self-talk, to practice celebrating your uniqueness, and have opportunities to bring your authentic self into conversations and to decision makings. And so my hope is that when you leave here today, there will be at least something that's kind of stuck with you in your mind and heart, and that it pops up for you at just the right time during the week, and you go, oh, that's what she was talking about. I can practice that here. And if that happens, I'll feel like I did my job today. Namaste.